Well, good evening. It's my real pleasure this evening to offer this No Place Like Home Housing Justice Award to Allison Henry, who is not only a champion of housing justice, she's also a very dear friend. And I've gotten to know her over the last few years. I remember the first time I really became aware of her passion for housing justice was at Heritage Square South when she showed up and supported us. We were sleeping overnight on the sidewalk, and I remember having a very interesting conversation with her about her real interest in the marginalized, the people who are homeless, and her deep caring for that population. And over the years, I've seen her work with the Pasadena Tenants Union, and our organization strongly supported the tenants union and tenants' rights and the all of the work that they were doing. And the tenants union has also supported us in our efforts for housing justice. We've also partnered with Everyone In because we share a common goal, which is to end homelessness. And so it was really a delight to see that Allison Henry became an organizer for Everyone In and has done an outstanding job in the San Gabriel Valley. So there are just many things that she has done that demonstrated her commitment, her passion, and her growing awareness of how to be an effective organizer. So she definitely deserves this award, which I'm holding up to honor her for all her amazing efforts as a housing justice organizer and advocate. So thank you so much for your work, Allison. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Anthony. It's an honor to work with you and Jill, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't thank so many other people that I've worked with and organized with in Pasadena, and even my fellow organizer in the San Gabriel Valley, Teresa Eilers, who organizes with me at Everyone In. We're very lucky to have a lot of people who care about housing, because as we know, housing impacts everything. And when I think of myself as an organizer, it still feels like kind of weird because I kind of came to this a little bit later in life, but I was always politically aware. Organizing or advocating for people who have nothing, that's like almost the fourth wall, I think, when you talk with people, especially people like unhoused folks who really suffer the bigotry, societal bigotry. I think I said that to you earlier, like working on unhoused issues, it's especially in the San Gabriel Valley where we have a lot of suburbia, it's the worst intersection of classism and racism. It's the worst. And so you have to organize around those biases and rub them down a little bit through education and through stories. Telling stories about the people whose life is transformed by being brought into a hotel room, for example. 2020 brought us, amongst other things, COVID. And in pandemic response, we saw a lot of people organizing quickly to bring in our unhoused brothers and sisters who were maybe vulnerable, but otherwise healthy and COVID negative, to prevent a spread of COVID. And Everyone In, and a lot of other local organizations, such as yours, Anthony, Making Housing and Community Happen, POP, LA Voice, and community members in various cities in the San Gabriel Valley, we organized and advocated for underutilized hotels to be used in the San Gabriel Valley so that, Motel 6 would start to shelter seniors and families and educate the community about what brings people to homelessness. Because like I said, that terrible intersection of racism and classism means that there are narratives generated about living unsheltered that are incorrect and untrue, and it keeps us from coming up with solid solutions. And so Project Room Key, which then became Project Home Key as some of these sites became permanent, that's one solution. In Whittier, we had another solution of a temporary shelter and a navigation center, which is a significant victory. I'd like to thank all my folks in Whittier, Homes for Whittier, Sustainable City, for all the victory there, because that community needs a lot of education support around unhoused issues. And they also worked with me to get, they were one of the many cities that passed a intended to be temporary, of course, but a COVID-19 eviction moratorium. So being cognizant of people who might very well enter homelessness because of a pandemic. And we already know from the LAHSA homeless count numbers before the pandemic that over half of people who experienced homelessness for the first time, it was economic issues such as rent increases or medical bills. So, organizing in communities to get supports for unhoused people, I've met wonderful people, and then you see some of the unfortunate side of folks. There was a site in a local community, affluent community, and this site is now a permanent site. It was approved at the County Board of Supervisors a few weeks ago. Wonderful community support came out and advocated and commented. But what was unfortunate to see is there are people coming out from their own homes to protest this site that's actually it's surrounded by three sides by a freeway. I actually call it the mouth of the freeway because it's about 4 lanes coming off the freeway. You couldn't actually build housing there, and it's accommodating people and keeping them off the streets, keeping them healthy. And as we're learning from individual stories in that building, people are reconnecting with services. 40% of people brought in for Project Homekey reconnected with services and income streams that they had an entitlement to, a right to, but were not connected to. Project Homekey has actually also reconnected families. Mm-hmm. And it's also allowed people to further pursue medical treatment because they had lost medications or medical records along the way. It's hard to keep your home intact when you live on the street and you face sweeps. So we've got a lot of ways to go in the San Gabriel Valley, but we've also got a lot of great groups starting work. Monrovia, we've created a Monrovia Housing and Tenants Advocates to work on inclusionary zoning, the housing element when it comes up for review, and advocating for 60% of the Monrovians who are tenants. That was another community where we brought in a COVID eviction moratorium for tenants, which was a win since tenants hadn't really been considered by the city council before. And lastly, I'll just say, housing is everything for everybody, but as a woman, it's one way for me to be autonomous, to be safe, to pursue what I want to pursue. And I think about that every time I work with tenants who are struggling to retain their housing after years of working, seniors who are looking at being priced out of their home, and my sisters on the street who try and be invisible and disappear into nothing to be safe. So that's what motivates me and drives me. But I really appreciate this award, Anthony and Jill, because it's not always easy work, but definitely rewarding. And it's allowed me to create a community of fellow organizers that I know will create societal change.